in terms of your own personal convictions or in your temporary insanity, whatever it must have been. And I think the only way that we're going to be able to look at this is, yes, we're going to have to look at it dispassionately, however difficult that must be, that we are going to have to be objective when it comes to dealing with this thing. Is it terrible? Oh my God, absolutely. Nobody should have to die for whatever reason, right? But in order to, because what we are saying is, editor, we want to stop it. What we're saying, Ruth, is that we want to stop it. But in order to stop something, we have to figure out why it started, how it started, how it's carried on, right? At the point where life is being taken, that individual, this man who has killed this woman, at the point where life is being taken, are they thinking, I am taking this life because it is a woman and I hate her? It is an uncomfortable situation, but we're going to have to ask the question.
What do you think?
I don't think that can be given to every situation. I think that there are very few that can happen in that manner.
Yeah.
I think that if we were going to uncover the layers and ask the question truthfully, that very few would say, yes, I'm taking this life because she's a woman and all women damned to hell, let me kill them. I think that there are very many elements that lead towards that happening, and circumstance then is what has created this place where it happens to be a woman that is being killed
by the
man that is doing the killing. But because there are so many other constructs in society, it then becomes a little bit easier for us to call it a certain thing because it is a woman
To blanket
being
it.
killed. And truth be told, in order for us to solve this, we must, again, like the court of law, separate
Emotions.
this. We have to. Otherwise, we will never solve it.
Yeah.
We will not get to the place whereby we can make it public and we put it into the public and make anybody, doesn't matter, man or woman, so uncomfortable with taking life that they stop it. And that's where we need to get. That somebody needs to get so uncomfortable with taking life as an option to solve an issue. That's where we need to get to solve the problem.
I think we're dealing with a deeper issue. It's unfortunate, no. It's wrong that it ends up with any form of violence, any form of death. Because most of the cases, and editor, you have dealt with many of them. Ruth, you've also seen very many of them. We have had many conversations here. Most of the cases that will end up with a woman dead will happen in an intimate situation. This is somebody with whom they're involved. They're in a relationship, they're in a marriage, they're in something.
Yes.
Okay? And it will end up there. What is it that will end up there? Why is it that we don't talk about somebody killing their co-worker because she's a woman?
No, we have also such cases. People have killed women. For example,
we have many. I hear you. We have many. The greater percentage is not that.
Yeah.
The greater
intimate
percentage is not where a woman was walking and then she met with a stranger and the stranger killed her. The greater percentage is not where a woman, it has to be, it is a greater percentage is this one where you know one another.
80%.
You are in a
studies.
relationship with one another. What is it that would start a relationship? Is a relationship starting on a point of hate, of conflict? It's not. So why is it that this conflict is leading to violence, is leading to death? And I think it shows us something that's happening in relationships. Either the structure of our relationships or the structure, like you said, of our mental state before, into, during, after relationships. That this entire power structure that ends up playing in favor, quote unquote, of the male person and against, quote unquote, the female person. And the female person here is physically not as strong as the male person. So the male person uses the physical power to empower, to overpower the person, and the other person becomes a victim. So what is this that's happening in these relationships? Are we dealing with things that are happening in a relationship where now the whole battle becomes a power battle and a power struggle in a relationship? And this power struggle can only end up in a physical contest. And the physical contest will end up one way. And often it ends up one way. There are also very many cases where you see it ending up the other way.
I think it's a question of expectations. In every relationship setup, be it work, be it friendship, be it relationship, romantic relationship setups, and any other setup where two people are coming together to transact whatever sort of business, even business relationships. It's a question of expectations. It's a question of, I'm coming to this relationship. You know, when you get into a relationship, you don't get into a relationship with a person that you hate.
Nope.
Because if the question was hate, then we would say, these are partners who got together with one having in mind the fact that they truly hate this person and they're coming with an agenda from the onset of the relationship to kill that woman. So it's a question of, I have seen this, let's say, for example, I am a man, I've seen this lady, I like her, and I genuinely believe we can have something together, be it that leads to marriage, or be it a relationship where we are trying to figure things out, or any other form of relationship that we are having. So when we get into this relationship, there are expectations that naturally rise from the fact that we have decided to engage together.
Yeah.
Some of the natural expectations from the African context are, I'm expecting that as a man, you will provide. And the man is expecting that as a woman, you will probably take care of me, especially if it's a marriage setup. You will take care of me, you'll take care of the family, you will make sure everything is running okay. So in the upset of those expectations, conflict begins.
Conflict rises.
Where if, as a woman, I expected you to provide financially, and you stop providing, I begin complaining. And as a man, because you're complaining, I react. So sometimes even these murder cases where women end up being killed, normally begin with the woman's expectations have not been met, so the woman begins by complaining first. And I'm not saying that the woman deserves to die, but I'm just now leading you up to the death process where the woman ends up dying. So the man begins to react to that complaint of, you are not providing as I expect you would. Now, if proper communication comes in where the expectations are not met, when expectations are not met, then I doubt we would have people dying in relationships. Because what would happen is, if I realize that you are not providing as I expected you to provide, we would end up having a conversation about, why are you not providing as we thought you'd provide?
Yeah.
Is it a question of the economic times have become difficult? And what can we do about it? Can I also chip in in the meantime, as we stabilize?
Are young people brought up to understand that when you have these difficulties, you have a conversation about it?
And that is it. And that's why I brought up the fact that if proper communication would reign in these conversations, in these conflict situations, we would never find ourselves getting to a point where there is death and the people are dying, people are being dismembered. It would be a question of even a slap. It would be a
even pushing.
Even
in my head.
Even forget about pushing. Even insults.
Even insults.
If we were to be trained from a young age how to communicate when there are issues, we would never get there. For instance, I'd tell you, I am not trying to promote myself in terms of my relationship prowess, but I rarely find myself in confrontations when I'm in relationships. Why? Because at my high school level, we used to be taught critical thinking and we were taught conflict resolution. At my university level, Strathmore University, some of the foundational courses you are taught are communication skills, critical thinking, conflict resolution. As a lawyer, one of the core courses I have to take before I'm a graduate of a university of law school, a law school university, is a course on conflict resolution. To even further myself as an advocate, I would have to take a course on mediation
and
you know.
arbitration.
So it would be very difficult to find somebody like me in a confrontation because there has been a foundation where I have been taught proper communication skills and things like that. And I'm not even accrediting it to education so that we say that there are certain people who would be underprivileged and therefore it justifies their nini.
We have people who've studied what you've studied.
Exactly. And they still
exactly wonder whether they actually went to the same school.
Exactly. So I think also it is also over and above communication, yeah? Because I would say education institution has helped me to be the kind of person that I am in relationships today.
Yeah.
But there are mentorship platforms that have been set up out there where young men and women haven't taken advantage of the same mentorship platforms. You find that, and it's also a question of how society is structured. We've gotten to a point where we don't do community activities that would bring us together as they would in the past. Like, for instance, I'm not saying that everybody should be religious, but church used to be one of those platforms where if you are in a relationship setup and things are not working according to the way they should, you meet a pastor or you meet your religious leader and you tell them, Pastor, we are having problems. Could you please help us navigate these problems?
Yeah.
So you find yourselves resolving your problems in that community setup. So we don't have community. We are
there are many things that are lacking in the community.
The individualistic.
Let's bring in the elder,
Yes.
who is also a behavioral scientist.
Okay.
Before the elder, I
Yes.
have something to say.
Please.
When we were speaking, I was just thinking about intergenerational conversation that are really authentic because we are different generations. But most of the time, you'll find on intergenerational conversation also, there is the same blame game. You young people, you are lazy, you are not doing ABCD. And I just want to remind us, personally, I didn't go to Strathmore, but I'm from Kibra University, whereby we are not taught all these skills.
Yes.
But I've never killed any human being.
Yes.
Like, it is difficult for me, again, to be like a problematic person confronting people, apart from when I'm on my activism, I'm defending human rights. But one-on-one, when I'm in relationship also, it doesn't happen. So another thing I'm looking at, yes, all the time we want to paint Christianity as one of the ways, or religion as one of the ways that has worked for African. That is where we messed up, because Christianity, religion, on a religious perspective, looking at Islamic religion and Christianity, there is a place that says if anyone is not of that religion, they are supposed to be killed. One of the people who are vulnerable to be killed is a woman. What Mackenzie did, he killed most of the women. We are still talking about 546 women. And I was telling my colleagues, we have data at Mackenzie, and the government has not provided the exact data. How many women were killed on that? Every day we are losing women in churches. Every day we are losing women in mosque. But religious leaders, when they come, they will cover that. And because we are brainwashed that this is the way, Jesus is the way, in quotes, Muhammad is the way, that is what we follow. But there is limitations to all this. I was taking my daughter to school last week, and when we reached in that school, we didn't have a choice, because I was telling the person in charge that we are not religious. And for her, she thought something else. And this is also problematic, because people like us are not allowed to live in the community. And I tell people, if anyone wants to kill anyone that is not religious, if there was a man and there is a woman, they will kill me first, because I'm kind of vulnerable. Again, another thing is about the entitlement attitude, whereby patriarchy has it. That is the reality. Patriarchy has it at the household level and even at the community level. A woman, for example, if I want to leave my relationship today, it will be okay for my partner to leave the relationship, but it is not okay for me to move on.
Why?
The same entitlement. You get? Me, I'm different. If I want to leave my relationship, I know my partner is listening today. I will go. But women are not liberated like the same way that I am. Yes, I don't have those education, whatever, but in my social life, I know what I want, right? But most of the women don't know whether to stay or to go. Sometimes we tell women, this relationship is violent. You need to walk away.
Yeah.
And I look at people and say, sometimes walking away is more dangerous than staying. You walk away, he kills you. You stay, yes, he abuses you forever, but immediately when this woman is walking away, she's packed. Tomorrow she's dead. So there is things that we tell women, we advise women, and I just want to bring all these issue. All women have their individual stories. I live with women, I sit with different women, in fact.
What do you see? I mean, because you've dealt with them, and you're saying that many times you deal with women who are going through domestic violence, and you advise them, when it gets to this level, probably one of the options that you should consider is walking out of this relationship. Tell me the reasons that they tell you that they will not.
In my work, I've never...
You have mentioned that if you step out,
advised
you'll be killed.
any woman to walk out of the relationship. But when I talk, we share our stories collectively.
It becomes an option.
Yes, optional. Because when you say maybe, you
So
walk-
why don't they walk out?
mine, all women that I've spoken to
Yeah.
who have experienced violence, they've walked away.
Okay.
Yeah. And walking away,
Have they been killed? Because you said if one of the things that is if you walk out of a relationship, you
Stand a higher chance.
stand a higher chance of being killed. Where are you getting that from? Is it from what you've observed?
you know, when you work in the community, for example, in the community that I'm working in Kibera, men will say, they'll just amka asubuhi. Now, waseme kwa vichekesho, like, unajua kikosa hapa, edit atakuarrest. The face that I have when I'm working in the community with women has given most of the women power to rise. So when they're walking away out of this toxic relationship, let me tell you, most of them don't live in that community. Because we've seen also men stalking on these women, beating them, unaona, in a public space. And everyone is silent because, like, uyu ni bibi na bwana. So when these women are walking away, also, out of their own choices, they don't live in that community. They go somewhere else. Or right now, for example, we work with Usikimye directly, and where they are located, if we need referral, we'll use Usikimye. And the best part is when these women are now, like, they are referred to Usikimye. They will also get mental services. They will get support. They will get financial support. So when they come back in the community, they come back in the community when they're so much empowered.
It's very strange, yeah? We, having made the noise and having brought this awareness to the level now, it has to be discussed. It can't be ignored. This is where now you need to be specific. When you talk about femicide, it's deliberate killing of women. Deliberate. Someone has set out, that is what is in their mind. Now, there's some which are institutionalized. If you look at certain countries on this planet, let me pick on China. Children were killed because of a preference for boys.
Yes.
India, the same. Okay. Yet, when you look at the global picture and the numbers globally, we actually don't feature. Because 50% of all violence against women which end up in death is actually found in Latin America.
But Africa features as top, with 20,000 women dying every year.
Actually,
Then Latin America.
Actually, women dying. I'm talking about. That's why I'm categorizing
the
it.
femicide.
I'm categorizing
Okay.
it. I'm categorizing it specifically because if we want to ensure that it is understood, we have to be specific about what we're talking about. If you're talking about gender-based violence that ends up in women dying, it's not that these people hate women. It's what we've been talking about here. Okay? Now, as they say, numbers don't lie. But if you then read the literature on why this happens, and you read the literature based on this content, unfortunately, most of the literature hasn't been written by Africans. So some of the things they point out, they say, polygamy, it is this, it is, and I'm reading, I'm saying, you don't really understand.
Not
You
connected to femicide.
don't really understand this thing. But the point is this, when something reaches fever pitch like this one here, and it's actually a genuine problem, it's something you can't wish away.
It is.
Because young women are dying, people are dying, and the numbers are increasing. So you cannot look away. There has been a discussion that we've had in this studio for the longest time. We gave it a pause to focus on education. It was a mental health discussion. Because mental health, you don't have to be running around naked in the streets of Nairobi waving and
mental
talking to
health
yourself.
issues.
No. All you require is for something to be either too loose or a little too tight in your head. And it's unresolved.
Yes.
This issue of a woman leaving a man and then the man following to kill. I want to use this as an example. When a man is disempowered, a man, he feels himself that society, whatever it is, has disempowered him. That man in a relationship is dangerous. Because to recover his balance, he'll want to dominate this person.
Yes.
If that lady leaves, he's back to that position of disempowered, and even worse, he can't even live with a woman. Now, that person is going to have difficulties living with himself. Forget with other society. He's already looking at himself through the eyes of his peers and his society, and the position he started off with has now been worsened.
And he has failed.
And he has failed at
Failure.
kabisa. That is a question of baby. Now, when it's put that way, now, such a person, can you see how this murderous thought can easily get into their minds?
Yeah.
Now, ask yourself the situation. People talk about South Africa as leading in these.
Yeah.
Look at how the African male was disempowered in South Africa during apartheid. Just look at it.
Their land was taken away from
Those
them.
people, I mean, that amount of violence that you see, it has to come from somewhere. Someone must have harbored it and harbored it and harbored it. And now an opportunity arises, they can unleash it. People don't wake up in the morning and they are violent. No, it doesn't happen that way. Something must happen that plants that seed, and then it's nurtured and it grows. You talk of, say, communities where you call a demonstration, drop of a hat, they're demonstrating. It isn't genetic.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
It is learned behavior.
Even the technique.
Learned
Hand
behavior.
missiles.
It is learned behavior. Where I can be in a suit and I'm carrying a briefcase and there's some stones in that
There's a
briefcase.
declaration.
You shock and say, hiya. This kind of suit is throwing stones. Kwani.
Always ready.
No, yani, at the drop of a hat, you're willing to resist.
What leads to that? What's that learned behavior?
You see, the learned behavior is if it is instilled in your mind that you've been systematically marginalized, that you are considered after everybody else has been considered, then you figure, well, what do I actually have to lose? Let me give you an example. For the very longest time, when you had a riot or a demonstration, the two are almost synonymous. In a place like, say, Kisumu, you'd find a car being burnt, a tuk-tuk. You never heard of a motorbike being burnt or a bicycle being burnt. Why? People could identify with a bicycle or a motorbike. Tuk-tuk, not some. Car they couldn't identify with. So a loss of a car, how is that? How does that relate to them?
Don't know what it is. Never had it.
Yes. When people are empowered and people you know have those things, you can relate to those things.
Yeah.
And you can even understand the value. If they're absent, in all honesty, you couldn't care less.